Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy, and we're going to talk about the lessons learned for the 2024 U.S. presidential election, the election race, and the Tramaswamy effort we're doing. Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tramaswamy, trauma to the poverty that Biden has brought, trauma to the war that Biden has brought, trauma to the lawlessness that Biden has brought. Tramaswamy is the way to get it done. Trump can get elected. Vivek can actually govern. Okay, that's the best way to understand Tramaswamy. I love that term, and I think it's the correct term to use to go forward. All right, so all right. But what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the lessons for the 2024 U.S. presidential election that we learned from True Detective Night Country, starring Jodie Foster. And the woman who played Navarro was really exceptional. I apologize, I don't know her name. I've never seen her in anything else. I've seen Jodie Foster in 50 other things and known who she was since somebody shot Reagan for her. Which was really not a good idea, right? But that's what happened. It's one of the reasons why I know her name, because I remember her for political reasons. I remember her for her work. Very, very interesting lady, right? Terrible thing that happened to Donald Trump. But this is we talking about politics here, so that's part of it. Also, if you're not aware, man, oh man, is Hollywood all up in political business, right? I truly believe there is zero distinction between Hollywood and Washington, and the reality is, I think far more is done to govern America in Hollywood than has ever been done in all the years of America in Washington D.C. Okay. All right. Full spoilers for all of True Detective, including True Detective Season 4 here, because we're going to have a full, robust conversation. By the way, I just want to tell you, the reality is, I am a spoiler channel. I do not have one-cheek conversations. I don't talk about things halfway, right? So if I'm going to talk about something, the moment I mention it, you should know I can spoil that thing, because I do not have one-cheek conversations. I simply don't. I don't. Right, and I want to encourage you too. I want to eviscerate virtually all non-spoiler content. I'm so sick to death of spoiler freak. I don't want any of it to live on YouTube anymore. In my humble opinion, to have a home here, I think it's a complete waste of everyone's time. Right? Having these one-cheeked half conversations. Right? I just really despise it. And I'm trying to cut out all non-spoiler content. And so my stuff is spoiler full, right? Ending explained. Here we go. Okay. There's this huge, important lesson that we as Americans need to learn from True Detective when it comes to the 2024 U.S. presidential race, right? And the reason why I want to talk about this is extremely important. True Detective is actually now officially, in my humble opinion, the greatest small screen experience ever, right? I think in the police genre, I should put that asterisk on it. So basically, the True Detective, it's widely regarded that True Detective Season 1 is one of the best things that's ever been created for the small screen. Right? One of the best shows ever created for the small screen. I agree with that, right? Many critics won't even argue that point, right? It's pretty widely regarded that the best things that have ever been filmed for the small screen was True Detective Season 1. I think True Detective Season 4 absolutely surpassed it, right? Navarro and Danvers, these characters are tremendous. The story was spectacular, and in episode 6, and I'm really excited about this show. I don't do this. It's the only show, right, where I sit down, I turn the lights off, and I just watch it. Everything else is, watch 10 minutes on my phone, watch 10 minutes on my PlayStation, split attention, you know, like, you know, that the raccoon under my porch knocks, you know, like it's a million different things, you know what I mean? Like, but I turn off the lights, I focus, and I watch, right? And it was spectacular, right? Now, here's what's interesting. So, we arrive at the end, and in the end, Danvers and Navarro find out who the killers are. The killers, all of the scientists at Salal Station, were murdered. Actually, no, that's not correct. Were sent off into the ice without their clothes. Very interesting. That means that these cleaning women, by the cleaning women who cleaned Salal Station. So the cleaning women who cleaned Salal Station found the secret hatch, found the secret lab, and found where Annie had been killed. Annie K had been killed, and found out that Annie K had been killed by every single scientist at Salal. Okay? So the cleaning women all gathered together, about a dozen of them, stormed Salal, right? And what they did was, then they put all the scientists into a semi-tractor trailer, drove them into the cold, you know, not desert, cold tundra, right? Told them to take off their clothes. The cleaning women folded their clothes, which I thought was really interesting. You think they'd be tired of cleaning, but like, that was very interesting. Like, it was a very interesting detail. Folded their clothes, and then at gunpoint said, "You guys just run off into the ice. Run, because if you stay here, we'll kill you," right? And what's interesting is the cleaning woman really didn't kill them. They simply just said, run for your life. And if those guys had just said, "Hey, you can shoot me now," they probably would have had a better chance of living, right? So I think that's very interesting that the cleaning women actually did not kill them. They just said, "Take off your clothes and run that direction," right? At gunpoint, right? So really, they didn't murder anybody, right? And those guys shouldn't have moved a muscle and said, "Hey, I ain't running off into the tundra. You can shoot me now. Let's see if you got the stones," right? Like, so one, that, you know, be courageous in life, right? Like, don't let somebody make you do anything. You're like, make them do the hard part. Don't do the work for them, right? Like, so, but what's interesting is, so Danvers and Navarro figure all this out. They then go right to all 12 of the women who are all at this, like, house where they live together, right? And they're like, "Hey, we think that, you know, we have some questions." And so this one woman says, "You know what? Let's skip the question part." And the leader of the women says, "Let's do it this way," right? And this is really interesting. It's got really, really interesting. She's like, "I'm going to tell you a story," right? And then she tells Navarro and Danvers everything that happened. She just lays it out and says, this is how the scientists at Salal were murdered, right? Or were did the work for us and murdered themselves, right? That's a good way of putting it, right? And what's really interesting is she tells them the truth. And then at the end she says, "Isn't that a fascinating story?" Right? Which is really, I was like, wow, you know, she told them the truth in a story. And this is what you need to understand, okay? True Detective is the best thing on the small screen because it is truth being delivered in an entertaining manner, right? And that's the only truth we will listen to as Americans. If you don't know that, you need to recognize the only truth Americans will listen to is an entertaining truth, okay? And what's really interesting is, so we've arrived in a point in America, and I think there's an analogy, there's a truth existing in the center of True Detective Night Country. What is that analogy? Here you go. It's saying that the only truth we have left in America is told in stories, okay? And I'm going to tell you that there's no truth anywhere else in America, in the secular world, and the reason why is because of our presidents. Right now, right? President Biden cannot tell you the truth because he can't remember it, okay? And then President Donald Trump cannot tell you the truth ever because he's allergic to the truth, and it burns his mouth when the words come out of his mouth. And that's why he lies constantly. He is I don't believe that Donald Trump at this point in his life is even capable of speaking a true sentence. He has lied so much that he no longer knows. He no longer he has seared his tongue. He can no longer actually speak truth. I think he does know truth, but I think he has built this habit of pushing lies out of his mouth so often that he no longer has the ability to tell truth. And so where we've arrived in America is the only place you will ever find truth, okay, is in stories, and it's going to come from Hollywood, and it's also coming from our comedians. And also, just to be clear, comedians actually now report the news, because no other news source, I think Sagar and Crystal Ball are still a source that's capable of actually telling truth. Slate Political Gabfest, I would say. Other than that, like the vast majority of mainstream news have literally zero ability to deliver any truth. So you will never get truth from your politicians. You will never get truth from news sources, traditional news sources. And all that's left is the only place that truth can fit in America is stories and comedy. That's it. And I think it's extremely important to understand this because you have to understand the shape of reality, right? And that, in my humble opinion, is the shape of reality. There's zero truth coming from our politicians. They're not capable of it. And there's zero truth coming from mainstream media sources, the vast majority of them. So we have to get our truth from stories and from comedy, maybe from commentary. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.